guys, welcome back to another episode of R&Dgarage. I want to give a warm welcome to all my new subscribers. You guys, we have less than, I believe, 75 to go before we hit 1,000 and I can start giving stuff away. So remember, tell your friends, tell your family, anybody who's into cars, tell them to subscribe to R&Dgarage. It's a lot of fun. Like you guys know, you already watched me. Okay, enough nagging. So today I'm super excited. We are working on Blueberry's tranny. Not just working on her, we're actually going to be bolting her back up. To say I'm excited is certainly the least of it. I've been dying to drive my little unicorn here for months. Okay, so that's basically the good news. The bad news is, I apologize guys, we got these parts so slow and so kind of piecemeal that we had filmed a bunch of videos of me actually putting it back together. We looked for them last night, couldn't find them. So I don't know if the computer did a purge or I don't know. I'm not quite technical when it comes to the computer, but unfortunately it's lost. So what I can suggest if you're still trying to put yours together is maybe go back to my former video of us taking everything apart and kind of do it backwards which again, I apologize, it sucks, but the next time we do tranny work about 5 years from now, I'll make sure that we get the parts, wait until all the parts are here and then put it together. But at any rate, let's get going. I am so excited. Like I said, her tranny is put back. Let's just go get it done. Come on, let's go. Okay guys, now that we have a chance that it's all put back together, I'm going to give you a nice loving long look of what she looks like cleaned up. Okay, so I'm going to swing this around so you can see the inside looks good. See the back. She's gorgeous. Okay, so a couple more things about here. Now is the best time to actually check and make sure you didn't forget anything. All your bolts are on straight, everything's cleaned up. You want to make sure it's in neutral, which we already did. You're not going to be able to move that with your hands, use a tool, but we're good to go. One more thing, you want to make sure that the fork here and the throwout bearing is basically in place. You always kind of want to be careful, as well as the spline. And, okay, so I wanted to talk about grease a little bit. I've opened up enough of these and seen grease, like hardened grease or grease that's been flung. So it's super important when you're putting on only the type of grease that Honda recommends for these guys. Make sure to put it in all the contact points and you should be good. You don't want to use too much because again, it'll fling off. If you use the wrong type of grease or too much of it, it may harden and then you're going to have to take it all apart and start all over. And you guys don't want to do that. So yeah, so again, make sure all your contact points are clean, the rubber booty, and yeah, I think we're good to go from here. Let's do it. Oh, hey guys. So, okay. Before you begin to bolt the transmission back onto your teggy or whatever, you always want to make sure that you have everything that came off the transmission to begin with that you're planning on using again. I'm talking about bolts, I'm talking about little booties, I'm basically talking about everything. Remember when we first took everything off, we actually made baggies with names on it for where the parts came from where the bolts came from where everything else came from. And I still kind of stand by that as a good rule of thumb to use because then you don't lose anything. Very, very important. Don't lose anything. So now that we've covered that, let's move on. Okay, so this is another good chance to make sure that your clutch and everything is into place. You remember how we did a clutch video a few weeks back now, maybe a couple months now, but at least. But it's always good to have another look at it, maybe another set of eyes, take a look at it, make sure your clutch alignment tool is still in there. So a couple things about this. I'm not going to remove it until we're actually ready to bolt the tranny back on in a couple minutes here. Another thing, these are usually a bit undersized, and so if you take basically the spline and point from another tranny and kind of fit it in there just to make sure it does fit and it's firm and, you know, close fit or whatever. That's probably a good idea. So again, I mean, I could probably take this out now. It's not like it's holding anything into place. So I just took it out. Okay, let's go bolt on that tranny. Well guys, check it out. The tranny is in. She's not completely fully bolted in yet because I wanted to give you guys kind of a bit of a look of what we did. I would have actually filmed us putting it in, however, it would have been heads, elbows, everything in the way, and you guys wouldn't have been able to see anything. So because of that, now we're going to take a long, slow, loving look, see, so you guys can see exactly how she went on, and also take a bunch of still pictures again, so you'll have a great reference on how to install your own tranny. Let's do it. So you guys remember in the beginning, we had the engine sitting on an overhead hoist. Well, that is now completely gone, and we have this stand in place instead. Don't forget the block of wood because it'll protect your oil pan. Okay, so when we were putting our high transmission stand here into place, we wanted to angle the engine just a little bit down. Not super down so that it's just kind of dangling by a thread, but enough so that it's going to be easy to actually fit the transmission onto the engine block. Okay, next step. Obviously, you're going to have dangling hoses, lines, you know, what have you. And so what you have to do with those is just get them out of the way any means possible. Zip ties, clips, whatever, just so you don't crush anything when you're getting ready. Now you're ready to put the transmission on the stand. So before we do that, you want to lower the transmission stand all the way down. Make sure it has the arms and the chain. Then you're going to need several people, at least I did in my case, or two, because remember the stand is on wheels and the tranny is very, very heavy. So if you have a buddy that can help you, perfect. So yeah, basically after that, put the tranny on the stand, make sure it's angled in a way where it's not going to hit anything else on the underside of the engine or, you know, body parts, panels, that kind of thing, and you're just about good to go. Okay, now I was having a little trouble with the chain actually reaching around the tranny for some reason. It didn't feel that secure. And so these were the arms I'm talking about that were on the stand until, you know, now. And so what I've been doing is using a strap like this, just, I guess you could say, a little extra security, because the last thing you want, or the last thing I know I want, is the tranny falling down, especially after waiting 6 months for parts. So yeah. Moving on. So you guys know that both these jacks are basically hydraulic. And so that means they put on a lot of pressure on whatever parts they're holding up. And so I just want to make a quick note to you guys, if you're jacking one of these up and you feel it starts to kind of like have a lot of pressure on it, or what's the word for it? I like literally just had it, like building up a lot of pressure, stop, because this is basically, you want to take your time with this job. You want to have friends help you. You don't want to rush. You don't want to try to like fit something in that doesn't feel like it fits, because these parts inside are so freaking delicate that they will break if you put too much pressure on them. So again, just a little helpful tip. Okay, so at this point, you're almost ready to kind of mate the tranny with the engine block. And so what we want to do is basically just, again, take your time, start jacking up the stand, start jacking up this guy here, or twisting it to make sure it fits. And then we're trying to get the tranny as parallel as possible before it goes in, because you want to line things up, obviously. You can put a bolt in finger tight, but do not tighten at this point because it will break. There's internal parts in there that will break if you tighten it more than finger tight. Again, so we're mating it up to the surface, getting it parallel. Always remember the input shaft as well, because you want that to go in perfectly straight. I'm not going to make the, the other version, but you know, like that, bam, there you go. So that's basically what we did here. Okay guys, so now we're at the point where you can start kind of using these bolts for security. But again, do not tighten these bolts to kind of bring the tranny together with the motor, because that's just, you'll break stuff, basically, long story short. And these two bolts, there's one here and there's one on the other side, and they're a little bit shorter than these 3 bolts. And another note about these bolts, these go in from the motor into the tranny, and these 3 go from the tranny into the motor. Okay, so once you're at this point, you should be basically have the tranny mated to the engine block. Maybe there'll be like a teeny tiny millimeter of space, but at that point you can definitely start threading in the bolts a little bit tighter. These 2 on this side, this side, and then the 3 on the other side. Okay guys, we're almost ready for my menacing torque wrench to come back in. Okay, but before we do that, okay, the main thing that I've learned a lot from, and that I think maybe you guys should do too, is actually pick up an Acura manual, because that basically details everything you need to know to put in a tranny. So, okay, now we're talking bell housing bolts. The only thing weird about the manual, or that I found weird, was that they want you to go ahead and torque the lower bell housing bolts in before you actually put in the other bell housing bolts, which I was like, you know, it goes so against the grain for me, because with me, you never want to torque something until all the bolts are in. So we're taking a little shortcut. I'm actually going to put in all the bell housing bolts, finger tighten them until they're a little bit tight, not, you know, super tight. And then once every bolt is in, I'm going to go ahead, come back here and torque these 2 bell housing bolts. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay guys, well, all the bell housing bolts are into place, so I'm going to start torquing. These are 17 millimeter bolts, and they require a 47 foot-pounds of torque. So let's do this. Perfect. Now we're going to go to the other side. And I'm trying to stay out of line of the, there we go, camera. Perfect. Okay, let's go to the other guys. Okay, now we're going to hit up these 2 bolts going through the T-bracket, and they're both 19 millimeter, and they require 87 foot-pounds of torque. So, wish me luck. I brought it up a little too high, sorry. Okay. There we go. Okay, let's do the top one. Perfect. Okay, let's move on. Okay guys, so before I show you pictures, this is on top of the motor, so it's going to be hard to kind of film from up top. But I wanted to explain and kind of do a walkthrough, and then I'll take lots of pictures for you guys. So this is what we're working on now, is the transmission mount. So these have the 2 pointed studs, kind of odd looking, and so those go up through the bracket here. You can go ahead and put on the nuts, the 2 nuts and the screw, but very, very loosely, because if you screw those down more than finger tight right now, you'll never be able to get that bolt through the rest of the bracket into the mount itself. So this way, if they have a little play, you can kind of do more adjusting. Okay, let's take some pictures. Okay guys, well, we've installed the lower mount, and now we're going to go ahead and torque the bolts into place. So these are 19 millimeter bolts, these 3 right here, and we're torquing to 61 foot-pounds. And I like to do kind of the last one here, because you kind of have to push the radiator hose out of the way, and it's a pain in the butt. So I like to get it over with first. Here we go. Perfect. There's 1. Got 2. Okay, and a 3. Beautiful. Time to move on. Now we have 2 more 14mm bolts on either side here, and they're going to be going on at 33 foot-pounds of torque. So let's get the torquing. Perfect. There's one. Great. Can move on. Okay guys, well this seems like a pretty good stopping point right here, so this concludes the first video of putting her transmission back on. Don't worry, we'll be back in the shop tomorrow after our cars and coffee, and I'll be continuing on with more bolts and more of the little stuff. But I hope you guys like this video so far. I'm just super happy and super excited that she's finally bolted back together almost completely. So this is great. I can't wait to drive her. At any rate, thank you guys so much for watching another R&D Garage video. Thank you for subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing. I appreciate you guys so much. And have a wonderful Easter. I'll see you guys later.